Want to know what the movers and shakers of New Hampshire's performing arts are thinking? Welcome to New Hampshire Unscripted with your host, Ray Dudley.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Oh, it's nice to meet you both.
Yeah, nice to meet you too.
Thank you. I appreciate you doing this.
Well,
That's fine. We're always happy to talk about Garrison Players.
Good. We'll have a good chat.
Get all our facts in line here so we can be accurate about as much as we can figure out. But
Wonderful. So let's start with some history, maybe?
okay.
That sound good? You can tell us the history of the Garrison Players and the building and all that. Look, I was on the website. It's pretty interesting stuff. So fire away.
Well, Garrison Players has been around since
1953.
53, and it was started by some people here in Dover, just as they would, I forget what the first show was, but it was Tommy Makem used to be in some of our early shows. Mm-hmm. He lived here in Dover, and he did Finian's Rainbow and things like that I don't know if it helped his career any or not, but we always like to say that he was part of our little group and very supported us for many, many years. There was one gal.
Well, Hugh Tuttle, Evelyn Sheeney, Hilda
McHugh, who was an actress in New York and settled in here in Dover. And I think she was sort of the one who was the spirit behind, hey, let's do a show. And they would sit around in somebody's living room and they'd say, now we're going to do this show. What part do you want? And what part do you want? And that went on for quite a few years. And it was very successful. We used to do most shows at the City Hall. And then Bob Ellis and Carolyn Ellis went to see a show and decided they'd like to be involved. And they had a whole different perspective of theater. They wanted to do musicals. Carolyn was a music teacher at the high school and the junior high school. So they decided to do Fiddler on the Roof. And instead of assigning parts, they held tryouts. And they had an incredible group of people that came and were involved in that show. Barbara and I went to see that show. We had one of our next door neighbors was selling tickets. And we said, oh, well, okay, we'll go. And I'm sure it'll be really an amateur kind of a thing.
Yeah.
But it was magnificent. It was an incredible show. And they filled up the auditorium at Dover High, which seated about 700 people, and just filled it up. Barbara decided the next year she'd like to go and try out for the chorus. And she wanted to know if I would come with her because she didn't know anybody in the group. And I said, yeah, but I'm not going to try out or anything. I'm a young lawyer just starting out, and I'll be much too busy. I have much more important things to do in life. And I went down there, and the place was packed with people trying out for Camelot. And the director, Bob Ellis, was somebody I had sung in the men's glee club at UNH with. And he came over to me. He said, "Oh, Tom, you're going to try out for the show?" "Oh, no, Bob, I'm going to be a very famous lawyer, so blah, 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 blah." And I used to do set work over at UNH. A friend of mine was at a degree, or was working towards a degree in technical theater. So he asked me one weekend if I could come over and help him paint this set. I said, yeah, I can do that. So I went over there and got hooked.
Of course.
Yeah, I just got totally hooked. And I was involved in every single show for 4 years at UNH, backstage, and just loved it. So Bob knew that, and he said, well, could you help out with the set for Camelot? Camelot's not an easy show to do set-wise. And I said, yeah, I can give you a weekend. And I went to where we were building the set, was Beverly Matchett's house. We were pre-building the set, and nobody else showed up except Bob. And he wasn't inclined technically at all. And I said, where's everybody else? And he said, well, they'll be along. So I spent that whole weekend by myself building stuff.
Of course, yeah.
And but people started to come around as we got closer to the show, and we moved it into the high school. And it was a huge success, absolutely huge success. And we did a number of those shows. And we were sponsored by the Dover Rotary Club. And they would sell all the tickets and the ad book. And they would keep all the money, but pay all the expenses. And then they would pay us a few $100. And our problem became over the years, and that went on for a while. Then we decided, well, if they can make all that money, surely we can by ourselves. So that's what we decided to do. And lo and behold, it didn't work out that way because we didn't have people out there all the time selling tickets and whatever. So we became just a regular community theater.
So what year, I don't mean to interrupt you, excuse me. What year were you in was Camelot and Fiddler?
Would have been the 72.
Okay.
70. And we joined in spite of the fact he said I wanted to try out. In those days, you didn't have videos, you didn't have much TV, you didn't have computers. And we joined because we had moved, Tom grew up in Dover. We'd moved back here from Massachusetts where he'd gone to school, and we didn't know anybody. So Garrison Players became our social life. We met some dear friends that are still very close to us, and all those years later. And it was just a place where we could go and have fun and perform or whatever. So it was really our social life, unlike today where you don't have a social life because everything's online. And it was
other people make it for you.
Yeah. And we floated around for several years as doing shows wherever we could, in the high school, in
City Hall, dinner theaters and restaurants.
Yeah.
Really?
As much as we could because we didn't have a home. And then the Hiram R. Roberts Grange Hall became available because it had gone defunct.
And why that happened was when we did Oklahoma, which was also a very big show, we wanted to have a cast party, but we needed a big hall. There were so many people. And DeWitt Hardy, who was a pretty famous artist from the Rollinsford area, he had been a member of the Grange, the Hiram Roberts Grange. And
I don't think he was a member.
Yeah, he was. Oh. And he suggested, well, why don't I see if we can use the Grange Hall in Rollinsford? And so they let us do that. We rented the Grange Hall for the cast party. And on the second floor, down away from the road, there was this little stage. There's a little perfect stage that had been built by the folks in the Grange. And I can remember sitting on the stage, on the edge of the stage, with some of our friends who we are still our friends, saying, wouldn't this be perfect for us? We wouldn't have to go find a place to rehearse, and we could have a place we could call a home and put a sign out front and say, come see us. And it turned out the Grange went belly up because they didn't have any more people joining. And so I called Frank Hayes, who was the national Grange person, and asked him what was going on. And he said, well, they went defunct, and under the bylaws, if that happens to any Grange, the property reverts to the state Grange. So they said, we own it now, but we're trying to sell it. And there's some title problems we're working on, but we're trying to sell it. And I said, well, what are you asking for it? I said, he said it was $35,000. And I said, well, we don't have any money, but here's what we want to do. We'd like to turn it into a performing arts center and have it the home of the Garrison Players, but then have other art groups come in and music groups or whatever. So, and make it a permanent place for the arts that would bring people into the area. And he loved the idea. And he said, if you can cover the costs of our attorneys to quiet this title, because it was everybody gave a little piece of land here and a little piece of land there. And so I said, well, how much would that run? And he said, $9,200. So we had a meeting here at the house and called all the Garrison Players together and said, we can have a home if we're willing to raise $9,200 and put a lot of sweat equity into the building. And people were saying, oh, we can't possibly do that. There's no way we can raise that kind of money. And then who was it got up and made that speech? Joe Parks who was a very well-known figure here in Dover and very big follower of our organization. He got up and said that once in a lifetime, an opportunity comes along that if you don't take it, don't grab it, it'll never happen again. You have to buy this place. And we basically passed the hat. And in a number of weeks, we had raised enough money to buy the building.
All 9,200 in a couple of weeks?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I can't remember if it was 2 weeks. It was a very short period of time.
Yeah.
Because we were so excited. Everybody was excited. And so we owned it. Then we went over and took a careful look at it and realized, the whole back end was falling down. There was no water. There's never been a well. There's no public, there's no sewage. They had outhouses inside the building. I mean, it was just one thing after another.
Is it still an outhouse if it's inside?
It was,
Yeah. But we felt strongly that we could make it happen. So we did, and we did all the sweat equity, tearing everything down, and the walls, and I mean just everything.
we took all that.
We had to put a foundation underneath it because there was no foundation. It was just sitting on loose bricks,
Jeez.
and the back end was falling in. So we
took out
got the
mortgage.
bank to give us a $40,000 mortgage, and I knew the one of the people at the bank very well, and he said, "Okay, we'll do that, but you have to personally sign for it."
Oh man!
I said, "Okay, I'll do that. I will do that." And Barbara said, "You did what?" I said, "Either we believe in it or we don't.
Yeah.
And if we believe in it, then we'll make it happen." And that's what we did, and we put the foundation underneath it. And shortly after we had done that, the town informed us that we could use it for storage and stuff, but we couldn't use it for performances because the minimum lot size in Rollinsford is 2 acres. And we only had a third of an acre, which meant we had to add land to it before we could start to really do anything with it. And the guy next door who had inherited the property from his aunt wasn't interested. He had an 80-acre or 84 acres of land around us, and he wanted to put up condos all over the place.
Oh.
And I said to him, "This is Rollinsford. That ain't going to happen." But he was determined to do it. And then when they wouldn't let him do it, he agreed to sell us
2.06 acres.
So we had more than enough to do it. So we bought them from him, and then we started serious work on the building. We were able to get an L-chip grant.
Well, before we got the L-chip, we were lucky to get a grant from the J. Henry Hanhiselo Charitable Trust. We got a Joni DeVries who did research on the architect of the building, who was Alva Ramsdale, who did a lot of the buildings in Dover and Rollinsford, the Rollinsford Town Hall, the Dover Junior High School, I think the library.
The library.
So he was a well-known architect. He designed the Grange Hall, and Joni did a lot of research, and she got a small grant from the new National Trust for Historic Preservation. And we got a grant from the McAninch Foundation toward a fire suppression system, which is still in work. And so we had some little grants going along, but we weren't, and with all the sweat equity, we were able to completely demolish all the lath and plaster. We kept all the original trim because we wanted to restore that back the way it was. But we couldn't go beyond that. We didn't have the funds for the electric, the plumbing, the heating, the well, the septic. And we were fortunate that one of our members, who was our president at one time, Ken Chadwick, his wife at the time was the executive director of L-chip. And we applied for a grant, and we were lucky, and we got a grant for $180,000. And that enabled us to do the big expensive stuff. We also got a grant from the Rotary, the Dover Rotary, for $20,000 to put in a septic system. And because we had a kitchen in the building, we have a little galley kitchen, they insisted that we have a commercial septic system. So we have this gigantic,
it's huge,
unbelievable septic system that we hope never dies. And so we were able to get things finished. We have a parking lot that's part of the acreage that we bought from our neighbor enabled us to have a gravel parking lot next to the building so we could have people come and park. And so we've also put 4 roofs on because we're in a very high wind location. And the first guy that we hired, when he put one of the roofs on, he didn't nail it down properly. And it blew
we find
off.
shingles all over the place.
I mean,
my God.
So we've done 4 roofs, I think,
roofs,
at this point.
yeah.
Not in its entirety, but, we had to repair and do and whatever. So we've done a lot of that. And the biggest thing right now is we have a sprinkler system in the building, and it's connected to an outside pump thing or a hookup valve. And the Rollinsford fire truck used to come and sit outside during our performances in case we caught fire and he could attach the water truck. But they don't do that anymore. We need to raise money to put in a fire suppression system, which is now going to run us, I think, close to $80,000. And that's our biggest. Yeah. And all that involves is a hole in the ground for water, tanks for water, connecting to a pump in the house or the building, connecting to a big dedicated line from the electric pole to the building. And it's very expensive. Nobody seems to know how to do it or put it all together. And it's a lot of money that we don't have.
So that's our next project. But in the meantime, we've been doing regular theater there and full seasons. We've developed a very large children's program, which
I noticed.
There's just tons of stuff that the kids do, and we have some wonderful people running it. And we have other groups that come in, like Ball in the House comes in at least once, if not twice a year. They're an a cappella group that travel all over the world, and they love coming up to New Hampshire because they're originally from Boston.
Oh,
so they can drive home at night. Says this is the only place we can perform where we can drive home at night. And a variety of other groups that come in and use it, and it's a very tight schedule when we don't have COVID around. Right, there is so much stuff that goes on over there that. And people in Rollinsford love it. I mean, it adds an element to Rollinsford that, number one, is very visible because it's on a main road. And number two, Rollinsford's a small town, and there's not a lot to do in Rollinsford unless you want to come see a show at the Garrison Players. So our community support has been extremely good.
Yeah, it's really a quaint place. I saw one show there. Tracy Kosker was in it. The automotive... I forget the dealership or something.
Betty's new car.
Yes,
Betty's new car.
Yeah, that was cute. She did.
It's a. I love the theater. It's really nice. I love all those quaint buildings like that. Anyway, where does the name come from? Garrison Players.
Well, Dover's known as the Garrison City. Back when it was first founded, there were 9 garrisons around Dover.
Oh.
That when the Indians would come down and attack Dover, and did that a number of times and carry people off to Canada. They built these garrisons, and people would gather in the garrisons for protection. They were like little forts. And we actually have one of the original garrisons that's still here at the museum, at the Woodman Museum. The whole garrison was moved to the museum, so it's still there. So we are known as the Garrison City, and they just thought when they formed the group that would be a good name for the group, and it stuck.
So how did, obviously, like a lot of groups, I'm sure COVID just stopped you in your tracks.
Yeah.
Yes.
What happened there for you?
We were really fortunate. One of the reasons we're fortunate is because we're an all-volunteer organization. We don't have anyone to pay. So
we pay our teachers for the children, but that's about it.
And it's based on the income from the shows and so on. So that was a real blessing for us. We didn't have to pay an executive director or anything else. We pay our heat and electricity and so on. And our youth theater was able to do a performance or two outside. As a matter of fact, we are now building an outside stage so that they can perform. We bought a better sound system so we can have sound out there that you can actually hear them rather than guess what they're saying.
Yeah.
And so that's going to be very helpful. And we'll have that done in mid-April. That'll be done. And then we can start using it. And we're hoping to open in May with Arsenic and Old Lace inside to about 48 people.
That would be the adult show. That's the adult.
That's the adult show.
Right. And the other thing is we also were very fortunate Joni DeVries, who I mentioned before, she gave us from her, when she passed away, her estate gave us a small donation, which was very helpful. And then another of our longtime members who had passed away a couple of years ago, her son was closing everything out and said, Mom always wanted to donate to the Garrison Players, and we got a $25,000 behest from her estate.
And then, of course, the government came in with a check, which
a $20,000 cares amount. So we managed to stay afloat, and we managed to be able to keep everything functioning.
We actually did pretty well last year. When you balance the books out, we did pretty well. So
you're one of the few groups then.
Yeah. And the government didn't take any money back. So yeah.
That's rare.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but I didn't actually ask what your positions are there at the beginning. So as far as anybody knows, you're just two people who happen to wander into the Zoom.
That's it. Well, I'm the recording secretary. Tom's the building director.
Okay.
And we've been really, really fortunate. We went through a rough patch a couple of years ago. We had some issues that happened. The board was diminishing. At one point, we had, I think, 6 members left out of a 15-member
We had 3
board.
Wow.
So it was really tough. And sadly enough, Tom and I were not on the board then. We'd stepped away for active, other than helping out, but for active participation, because
we've been on so long.
you have to eventually,
since the 70s.
You have to have new people and new blood and whatever to keep things going. And we got a call from the treasurer at that time and from Tracy, as a matter of fact, asking if we could meet with them to discuss what was happening. And over that period, we had lost about $30,000. So it was really kind of dire. We still had a mortgage, and it was a balloon mortgage. And we were meeting, I believe, in March or something, and the mortgage was due in June. And we just didn't have the money to pay it. So we got Greg, who was our treasurer. He negotiated with the bank to renegotiate the loan, which was great. We got a meeting of the organization and said, look, guys, we want to get this back on its feet, right the ship. We had people pledge money to us to get things going. And now our mortgage is roughly $20,000. So it's
That's it?
That's it.
Yeah.
And we've got a very strong board. We recently, Kevin Collins, who just retired as the principal of St. Thomas Aquinas, came on board with us. He's been wonderful. He's our production director.
He has a master's degree in theater or in acting.
And
He's a very good friend of
So
mine.
he's perfect.
Very good friend of mine. I've known him since the 70s.
Yeah, he's great. And Megan Davenport Karras, she's like a walking encyclopedia of theater and just a ball of fire. And she's our president. And
Her father was the professor of theater at UNH.
Jeez.
Gil
Davenport. So it's in her blood.
Yeah, nice pedigree.
Yeah. And we've got, just really, really wonderful people on the board that have done a great job. It's a very cohesive board. Denise, I think you've spoken to Denise, who does our marketing and publicity, has been fantastic. And everybody that's there has just really pulled together. Yeah. So it's been a real pleasure and we came back. That's when we kind of came back on the board. So
the problem with the group, I think with many groups like ours, people who are on the board all want to be on stage too.
Yeah.
And I've always said the board's function is not to be in shows. The board's function is to run the business. Mm-hmm. And before we had a theater, it didn't really matter because we didn't have any taxes and we didn't have any of that. But now that we have a theater that's quite valuable, it has to be maintained and it has to be economically healthy. So the people on the board now are much more inclined to be associated with running the business of the organization rather than just being in shows. But there's still that pull.
Yeah, I'll bet.
Yeah, I want to be in that show.
Speaking of your shows, how are they selected? Do you have a committee that reads? I mean, what goes on there?
We have a committee that is a play reading committee. and they read all kinds of shows and make recommendations and so forth. But the board actually chooses the shows.
Oh.
To keep it, I think, to keep it sort of under control. We consider ourselves family theater, and some people want to do some real experimental stuff, and that's fine. But we still want to keep in mind that the people who come to see our shows are families, and a lot of older people come see our shows because when they were younger, that's what people did. If you wanted entertainment, you'd go out to a theater somewhere and see a live show.
Right.
Younger people aren't quite like that anymore,
Yeah.
But there's still enough of them, so we get a lot of young people that do come in. And then Kevin sort of controls all of that. He's the one who brings the shows to the board, and the board, so the board can read the plays, and we're familiar with a lot of them anyway. After all these years, we know a lot of these shows.
Well, that was the other great thing that he did because he wanted to keep people active in theater while COVID was shutting everything down.
Yeah.
So he started a readers theater. And so we have had 3 different performances where people are on screen and being live streamed, and you can sign in and attend the shows. And we ask if you choose, would you make a donation? But there's no cost to sign in. And he's got these 3 different sets have gone up so far that have just been very well received. The last one was, I think, Romance Tonight or something.
Was sold out, right? Or it was?
Yeah, it sold out.
It
was wonderful because I tried. We were in Aruba at the time, and we were trying to watch it live stream, and we signed in, and they were. Oh, I said, why can't we get in? And oops, you're all sold out.
Yeah, good problem to have.
So it was great. So it was.
And Barbara and I did the Abbott and Costello routine of who's on first.
I was wondering who did that because I saw it real quick on YouTube. It flashed by the poster, and I thought
we had more fun with that.
Yeah, that was, and it's amazing how nerve-wracking it is. I mean, I haven't done theater for a long time, and I've never been super great at it. But even just reading is the script. You're trying not to read, and it's kind of scary in a way. But it was fun.
But the program was well received.
Yeah.
We've developed a whole new sphere of clientele. One of the girls in the last show was from England.
What?
Was she from Canada?
Yeah, she's from Canada.
She's from Canada, and she did her part from her house in front of her Zoom thing.
Yeah, that's amazing to me when you think about it, right? Technology can let you do it. That's crazy. Yeah. So did Kevin invent? I mean, not invent, but is that his idea? The reading?
That was his idea.
Yeah,
he's brilliant. I love him.
Yeah, he'd heard about some company doing it and then checked it out and found out how to do it, and he's put it all together, and it's just been wonderful because it keeps people. It's brought some people that have done shows with us over the years back to the group.
Yeah,
and it's brought in a lot.
And that was one of the
people.
main things we were doing was trying to tell people out there that we're still here.
Yeah,
we're still here. We're doing stuff. Don't forget us when the COVID scare is over with. Come see a show at Garrison Players.
Yeah, I saw the Christmas
kind
one.
of quality.
The Christmas reading was beautiful. Some of those stories I had never heard before, and it was just wonderful to sit and listen to them. It was great, and the readers were perfect. They were just great, wonderful to listen to.
Yeah.
Oh, I know.
And Mark Miller's rendition of the
little boy.
Yeah.
Oh my God!
I had never heard that before, and I just laughed and laughed and laughed.
I was in stitches. Oh man, that was funny. That was
a good one.
So you're going to be doing Arsenic and Old Lace, trying to dip your toe back into this post-COVID era.
Right.
What else is slated? You have things that are slated for later after that?
Yeah, the children's theater is starting up, I believe, end of May, beginning of June, somewhere in that range. It's an 8-week series as long as we get enough kids. Mm-hmm. And it's I think mostly going to be done on the outdoor stage. And it's meant to be, and I've kind of been trying to wrap my head around this one, it's meant to be kind of a combination with young kids and adults, not doing the same thing at the same time, but the young kids would start, say, Monday. They'd have their show, they'd be working on the show for the week. At the end of the week, they do their performance for folks. And the adults, in the meantime, would be doing kind of an adult version of the show. and they would do the performance afterward, like
The
later.
same show?
The same show.
Well, I'm not sure it's the same show, but it's same
version of it.
same version of it, just an adult version of it.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So
Yeah.
that's an 8-week program. And then typically we would normally end our plays in May sometime, early June. And then in the summer, it's mostly, so we have a summer camp program for young kids. So they would come for the summer, they would put on, do their classes and put on a play at the end. And then we open up again in the fall. So we're hopeful that come next fall, we won't be dealing with this COVID crap.
Yeah. So adult-wise, what's slated after Arsenic? Do you have something chosen, or are you just going to kind of hope that?
Well, they have some ideas, and I'm not sure what they are right now because I'm not involved with the play reading committee, but the idea is to do the first show to see how we can do it.
Yeah.
Or whether we can do it. Well, we don't even know that yet, but we're scheduling it. And if it can be done safely and we can meet the protocols, which I think we can, we have to have much smaller audience than we're used to. We can hold. We're licensed for 100 people in that auditorium, but that was before we built the thrust on the stage.
Oh,
because the stage was just too small, so we built a thrust, and that we lost probably 20 seats because of that.
Yeah.
So we can safely fit 80 in there, but I think under the protocol, we can only have half of that for an audience. So we'd have about 40 people, and we can make it work for that. 40 people would be fine.
Yeah. Is it profitable at 40?
I think it would be if we would tend to do it. Normally we would do it 2 or 3 weekends, and we would do Friday, Saturday, and a Sunday matinee. On the first 2 weekends, Friday, Saturday, on the third weekend. We could even extend it if need be, if we're getting enough interest, because cutting back with our audiences, half of an audience, we might want to extend into a fourth weekend. But that's still to be determined because people are still nervous about going out. And
it's going to take a while, I think, for people to get used to coming to live theater again.
But I'm thinking now that they've shrunk the distance from 6 feet to 3 feet, we possibly could fit more people in safely. And personally, I'm old enough to be worried about it, but I'm of the ilk. You got to get out there and live your life. You can't just sit in your house and wear a mask all the time and not do anything. And
I'm with you there. Is the group basically straight plays, or do you do musicals? I can't imagine the acoustics would be.
Oh, the acoustics are beautiful.
They are.
In that auditorium.
Oh, they're wonderful.
Just beautiful.
Wonderful. We do some small musicals now. We used to do big musicals.
Yeah, I remember you said Oklahoma and Camelot and Fiddler.
We did Anything Goes once.
What, in there?
No.
Oh,
this was at the high school.
Okay.
But at one point, we had 40 tap dancers on stage. So we're used to doing big shows, but you got to be practical about it. I mean,
right.
There are a lot of wonderful small musicals out there that people enjoy. They just don't know them as well as the big ones, but we're made into movies and we're on Broadway and all of that.
Yeah.
And comedy is our thing. I mean, we like to do comedy a lot.
Farces.
Well, people will come to that.
Charlie Brown.
If you get too serious, you get some serious playgoers who will come.
Yeah.
The average person goes, it's a little heavy. I think I'll stay home. That sort of thing.
Yeah. And they're little shows like you could do, they're playing Our Song. We did that years ago, and that went over well. And it's only a 3-person cast, I think. So with a couple
it's with the doo-wops. Yeah.
So, but
there's a lot of theater out there to be done.
I know.
The other thing is, much as we love musicals, they're very expensive to mount because depending on what you need for music, we've got a clavinova that if somebody really knew how to do it, we wouldn't need anybody but the person playing the clavinova because it does all kinds of voices. But typically we would have that, and we would have drums, and we would have some bass or something like that.
And musicians don't work for nothing.
No.
Yeah, I know. And you got to pay royalties. The royalties.
And royalties are much higher.
Yeah. straight plays, comedies, murder mysteries, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
More of our ilk, I guess.
Yeah. So does the group have like a 5-year plan? Where does it see itself? Are they wanting to expand, or you're just going to leave you like it like it is and, keep it that way? What's down the road?
The chances of the town letting us expand is pretty remote.
Even with the 2 acres?
We're in an agricultural zone, and our neighbors don't want to see a great big building there and I understand that. It serves our needs very well. Whether it does in the long term or not, I don't know. I would love to expand because I do a lot of the set work. I'd love to have an outbuilding where we could just store materials for building sets and not have to jam everything in the basement, which we do now.
Yeah.
But right now, I don't think the town would be agreeable to letting us do that because we'd have to get a variance. And they were cooperative when we did it the first time. I went to the hearing for the variance, but there were some concerns, and they put some restrictions on us of what we can do and what we can't do. For instance, we can't pave our parking lot because of the runoff of the water will create issues.
Jeez.
And we can't be a facility like for weddings or things like that. We can't be a function hall.
It can't be a function hall.
No, I mean, it's a perfect
which
place.
it was when it was a Grange.
Yeah. How odd is that?
Yeah. They didn't want us to be a restaurant or something. They wanted us to just stick with what we may, with new people down at City Hall, we may be able to approach them and see, but I think we would have had more luck with the old timers than we do with the new timers, but you never know.
Well, the old timers are easier to bribe.
Yeah. But I think also for as size-wise, as far as the theater goes, I think it's good in a sense to have a very strong, number one, a strong board. You have to have a strong board because you have to have people who are really dedicated to keeping everything functioning, particularly with all volunteers. And we have to have a manageable program so that we don't get in over our heads and we don't take on more than we can actually accomplish. And God willing, we make money every time we do something. Not that we're going to make a lot of money sometimes, but we don't want to go into debt over doing shows that gee, they're great to do, but nobody's coming to see them. And now we're in $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 and we don't have anything to cover that.
Right. I forgot my train of thought there. So you have a cast already for Arsenic, right? Did I see that? It's already chosen.
Yep.
So when would be the auditions for the next show, or how do people find out about auditions?
A lot of it's online on our website. When you can go to see www.garrisonplayers.org.
Great.
So you can go right there and you can see events, you can see shows, you can see tickets, etc.
And tryouts.
And I don't know if we advertise in the papers because I think
it depends on the show. Some of the shows we advertise in the paper, but most people are on the internet somewhere. So
Facebook,
there are
they find you, right?
Number of different platforms.
Yeah, Denise sends out these e-blasts and things, and she knows all that techie stuff. And so
it used to be when we first joined, everything was in the newspaper.
Yeah,
right.
That was it. Or we put posters around for tryouts.
Yeah.
And
I remember those days. Jeez.
Yeah, I hated that. I had to go, can I put this poster in your window?
I always hated that too. Oh man, I hate that. That's terrible.
Yeah,
but it worked in its day. It worked. I mean,
it was the only way. I mean, there was no other way. Restaurants and stuff were where people were going, and so you got to go where they are.
Exactly.
And then people who are very involved with Garrison Players, they're around enough that they know when the tryouts are up. And quite often directors will call specific people that they have in mind and say, we're going to have a tryout for this show. Can you come and everybody has to try out. Mm-hmm. Nobody's guaranteed a role.
Yeah.
But if you want to be on stage, we'll find a place to put you. That's our theory on community theater.
Yeah.
We've had lots of people who have never acted before or never sung before, who would come over, and this is where I come in. They come over and help me working on a set, and then I'd talk them into just sort of standing on stage during the show and singing along with somebody else in the chorus.
Yeah.
And they get hooked.
Yeah, of course.
And you can't get rid of them after that.
Well,
I meant to say, go ahead.
I was just going to say, we have an annual meeting, and typically that's the end of May, beginning of June, because our fiscal year ends May 31st. So we have an annual meeting, and at that meeting, we always have presented a play program for the next season. So that's when we reveal what plays we're thinking of doing. And at that time, anybody that's there obviously is notified. Tryouts for these are going to be, sometimes they do a block of tryouts in the summer, so they can get people already scheduled before it gets too late. But at least the group of people that's there gets that notification of what the new plays are going to be. So that's another way to.
Will you be doing that this year as well?
We're planning a meeting, and whether it's going to be virtual or whether it's going to be in person, I'm hoping we're having good weather and COVID is gone off the planet somewhere, and we can get people over there.
Well, I would love to talk with you again after that's been revealed, and we can talk about the slate of shows that are coming up.
Yeah.
Where do your directors come from?
All over the place.
Around.
Okay.
People that just want to direct. Jim Mastro's done several shows with us where he's directed.
And I've directed. I did Our Town, and it was my my daughter is a film editor in New York. She's a music editor, and she had a friend of hers who was a sound editor. So for Our Town, I sent her a list of all the sounds I needed.
Nice.
And he did it all professionally.
Oh man, good to have
and
friends.
Sent it back to me. So I had this wonderful sound system, but there's a lot of people who have been in theater a lot of years, who have a lot of experience, who get to the point where they really want to try directing.
And Priscilla Barton has directed 1776 twice.
Three times.
In the Grange?
Once in the high school, I think we did it.
First one was in the high school.
And then 2 in the Grange.
Oh my!
I did
God.
Ben Franklin in it.
Yeah.
Good for you! Wow.
I don't need makeup anymore. I am what I am.
If we hadn't had COVID, we were planning to do it. We were really hoping to do it this past September. So we may do it again next year. But it's the show we opened up with at the theater.
Wow.
And that was our first production in the theater. And it was wonderful, and people just loved it. And that would be something we'd love to do. Some of us would love to do again. Some people are going,
It's a huge male cast. It's like 24 guys, right?
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah. And that was the whole thing. We had to sort of notify people now that we're doing it in September, so make sure we can cast it.
Yeah.
Because that's a tough thing.
But those of us who did the lead roles are all ready to go again. Don Bryant did John Adams.
Yeah.
Oh man.
And Mike Pomp was in it.
He did Lee.
He was, Lee from Virginia.
Yeah.
And Kevin played Hancock.
Yeah.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think Kevin might direct a play or two. We've had Jean Prue directed a play. She was worked at Portsmouth High School as in the theater department over there. And she's and we get people that just like Carol McDonald, who's doing Arsenic. She just happened to be someone that was connected with us that wanted to direct, and she's directed a couple of lightweight things, and she wanted to try this one, and so there she is.
Wow. Well, Kevin
They were
directed
actually in rehearsal before the COVID hit. They were in rehearsal for Arsenic and Old Lace. And so they have waited a year, basically.
Wow.
We had all cast and pretty well rehearsed to actually do the show. Yeah. And we still don't know if it's going to.
Did you lose anybody?
Did
Does all that cast still coming back for the show?
Yep.
They're all coming back.
Yep.
Oh,
so they should know their lines by now because they've been years to memorize them.
You would hope. Yeah, I know Kevin directed all the shows at St. Thomas?
St. Thomas.
Yeah. All of them. Most of them he wrote or something, didn't he? Or
I think so.
Yes, he did.
And Kate, his wife, she's
wonderful musician.
Directed shows, and so I mean, it's great to have him on board. I mean, I hope he stays forever, personally. But
well, he came on the board with one request. He said, "I don't want to just be on the board.
Yeah,
I want to do stuff."
Mm.
Wow.
Yeah.
Nobody ever says that. But he did, and he's been nonstop ever since.
Yeah. That play reading is just brilliant,
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
And for people who don't know, that's all posted on YouTube, right? They can go out to YouTube and watch those.
Yeah. So you can sit, and we've got to watch the romance one because we haven't had a chance to do it since we got back home. But I definitely want to see that one.
Nice.
Interestingly enough, too, one of the Canadian gal, I now get her emails saying she runs a little theater group up there, and they just did a show this past week. Unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to see it, but I think it's also you can still it's recorded, I guess, so you can still see it. But it's interesting having that connection with them now.
Yeah.
So it's amazing.
And who knows where it's going from here? I mean, it's opened up a whole new genre of performance. The internet, and this was our first attempt at it, and it was successful. And I suspect that in the future we'll see a lot more of that, along with our regular shows.
Yeah,
because not everybody gets cast in a show anymore because it's a small stage.
Right.
But if there's other opportunities within the organization to perform, it's going to work. It just is plain going to work. So.
And with the internet, you can reach people that you wouldn't normally reach. There's people who can't get to the theater physically.
Right.
And would be thrilled to see a lot of what's going on. So.
Well, that's nice. Speaking of physically and whatever, we have our elevator, handicap elevator, so people can get up to the theater floor, which is on the second floor. And that's been a godsend. That we got a grant for that as well.
An elevator grant.
Yeah. So it was, I think we've really maximized what we can do in the theater in terms of space and ability, and it's a great place. And I think for the most part, I mean, there are some times when it hasn't perhaps been as welcoming as it should be, but I think it's always been a very welcoming organization because we are not the Portsmouth rep. We're not people who are getting paid to do shows. We just feel that we want to bring people together and do the best shows we can possibly do. And we have some really great people that act and put on some really good performances.
Yeah.
We've done our share of duds. I mean, every theater does. None that I've been in, of course.
Of course. Is there anything else you wanted to touch on about the Players that we haven't?
Mainly, we just want to get back to normal. We want to get back to having our regular season and get people in there and just keep the organization on a good, solid financial footing. So we are not always desperate for funds. We want to be able to, we have to do some kind of fundraising or grant writing or whatever to complete that fire suppression system, which is our biggest concern, because at one point the fire department in town could just shut us down, and that would be tragic.
Yeah, but it'd be nice to retire that mortgage too.
Yeah, and that's a big thing. I thought we could. Well, one of the things we decided to do before COVID was to take a portion of each show's money that comes in, the receipts, and apply that to the mortgage. And with that, we could probably retire it in 2 years.
Ooh.
So that would be great because we didn't have that.
So we're still working on that.
Yeah. And since we're a nonprofit, we don't have to pay taxes. So that's good unless people forget to file the forms, which has happened a couple of times. Cost us $11,000 last year. So that was not fun.
Oh, that is a lesson. Ooh.
Yeah. Yeah. So we are adamant about getting our forms, all our forms we have to file.
Barbara's adamant.
Well,
she keeps nagging everybody because we've been through this.
Megan's adamant.
When we first started working on the theater and we were writing for grants and things, we discovered that the board somebody on the board had failed to file with the Secretary of State. Every year you have to file.
Oh.
So they had taken away our
nonprofit.
No, not our nonprofit, but our corporation, because we're a corporation. So when we went to apply for things, we found out we don't exist anymore. So I had to go through the whole process of doing it all over again, which I did. And fortunately, it didn't affect our tax status at all. But it's that kind of stuff that we worry about because that has nothing to do with theater and being on stage. It has to do with running the organization in a business-like way. And I think we now have listings of all the things that have to be done and who's supposed to do them. And we're developing these manuals for all of the different parts of the organization, saying I'm developing a manual for the building, that these are the people that we have to call if we have a furnace problem, or these are the times we change the filters and blah, 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 all that stuff.
All the stuff that people don't even know happens there, you know?
Right. And they expect, well, everything's running fine. I don't have to worry. Yeah,
Right.
You do.
Yeah.
You do.
Yeah, you do.
So, yeah. But I think one of the things that people love about the theater is its location, because it's literally in the middle of a huge field.
Yeah, I was very surprised.
And people come out there and it's so peaceful, especially when you go out there in the summer. When we were working on the building, Barbara and I were out there almost every night of the week working on stuff. And we would get a sandwich down the road a ways and sit on the little back porch and watch the sunset. And it was the most peaceful thing. And there would be a farmer out in the field cutting the hay and that sort of thing. And that was going on when we first did a show in there. The first performance in there was a benefit kind of a thing for everybody who had worked on the building, all the contractors, and we invited them all over to the theater. And we put on a show that just involved putting together musical numbers from the shows we've done in the past.
Nice.
In the first number we did was Oklahoma. And of course, it's got that big splashy ending. And when it was over with and the farmer was still out there haying and
Oh my God.
baling hay and stuff, and I started crying because of all the years we'd put into it. And I couldn't believe that all of a sudden we were standing on the stage performing. And I think that feeling is sort of still there, still has a Grange feeling to it. People getting together and doing fun stuff.
Yeah, I actually thought I was lost when I first went. I'm like, you can't be out here. Where in the world would a theater be out here?
But it's pretty noticeable. It's up on a hill, and there it is.
Right by the blinking yellow light.
Did you get into the building at all?
Yeah, I saw.
Oh, you saw the show there. Okay.
Yeah, the one with Tracy.
Yeah, the car.
Yeah.
His new car, whatever.
And I just want to shout out to Tim. Tim was in it.
Tim Young.
Yeah, he's blind, right?
Yeah.
I couldn't believe he navigated that stage so easily.
Yeah.
Watching that show, that's incredible.
Yeah.
I couldn't
He's something. He was a professional actor.
Oh,
when he went blind, and he's totally blind. And
on
he
stage.
came to us.
He's on stage.
Yeah. He came to us when we did the Monkey Trial. What's the Monkey Trial show?
Inherit the Wind?
Yeah.
Inherit the Wind. And he came to us and he gave us his background and all. He said, I'm good at memorizing lines because when I go to tryouts, I memorize lines before I get to tryouts because I can't see the page. But he hadn't acted since he had gone blind, and it was a bunch of years. And it was quite overwhelming for all of us in the show to see him do that and develop that bond with him. And he came up to me afterwards and said, you guys have changed my life. And I get weepy just thinking about it. Yeah. And he's been a tremendous asset. And having the experience that he does have, he passes that on to people. So people appreciate what he does.
He has a gentle spirit about him.
He's just a lovely person.
Yeah. I met him. I did The Man Who Came to Dinner in Manchester.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
He came to see the show. It was just wonderful to talk to him.
Yeah, he is.
Just a beautiful.
I think the last one he did there was 12 Angry Men.
He's done more than that.
No, I know he's done more, but I thought that was the last show he did with us. We haven't done any shows since last year.
12 Angry Men was several years ago.
Was it really?
Yes.
Oh.
Boy, time flies.
Yeah, sure does. Can't remember what I had for breakfast. So.
I was juror number 9 in that one, I think.
Well, I want to thank you for this. I really do appreciate you offering up the time here to chat.
It's our pleasure.
Yeah.
Well, I
chatted too much.
No, not at all. Not at all. I mean, I love discovering what's going on out there, and all these beautiful little theaters, the Grange Hall. Just there's something so New Englandy about it. I just love it. it. So Tom and Barbara, what's your last name? Dunnington. Okay. Well, thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. I hope I get to meet you.
Yeah, do come over.
Come over, see your show, and we're in all of them. So.
All right. And there you have it. Another
Another great one in the tank. That one's going off to the memorial. Have a great day.